Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode number 332. And just like the monks, we want to rule with love. I'm Keith.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
I love you.
I love you guys too.
I am loved.
Did you guys have a
Now
good
I need
week?
your consent.
That I don't get.
Out of
I give you
love.
my love, but not my consent.
That went to a really weird place really early. How are you?
Tired, but good.
Long week?
I did gutters today.
Wasn't me. Wasn't me this time.
This is since keen listeners will notice that it's been 2 years since I did gutters last.
Since you've talked about it anyway.
Well, no, since I've done it. I've only done gutters. This is the second time doing gutters in our house. So we've only been at the house a little over 2 years. So it's exhausting.
It is exhausting.
I've lived here 5 years this Christmas. Guess how many times I've done gutters?
Zero.
None, because I rent. I'm smarter than you are.
It didn't take that long. It only took about an hour and a half.
Ugh.
And I had gloves, so it wasn't too bad.
The difference is he has equity in his home. You don't.
Nope. Don't need it.
Yeah, but in 30 years when he retires, he'll be able to use the equity in his home. You won't have anything because you're not putting anything into it.
But what will he do with it? He'll turn around and, build an addition on the house for all the kids that Sarah's going to have, and all the dogs that he's going to have. And
I wouldn't think so because I think
then he's going to take out another loan and put more equity
I think
into
the idea of that is in 30 years that equity will go into his retirement because they'll
And by that time,
downsize
we
because the
wouldn't be
kids will be
having more
gone.
kids, yeah.
Kids will be gone.
And what will you
We'll
do?
finally get that garage built.
Unless his grandkids move in with him, which, that might happen too.
You will either add on to the house, or you will leave the house and go traveling and build an, buy an RV and that kind of stuff.
He'll
Yeah,
have something
I'll have
to
something
spend
to buy
on
an RV with.
RV.
Eh,
You'll be sitting there going, God, I wish I could have an RV. If I had some equity in my home, I might have been able to buy an RV now.
I'm just going to go. I've got my retirement all planned out. I'm living on cruise ships. That's the way to do it.
Actually, it really is because you can go weeks at a time on a much cheaper
Oh,
scale
yeah.
than renting for an entire month. So.
It's cheaper than nursing homes. They feed you. There's entertainment, pretty scenery. Yep. Got it all figured out. I'm going to retire next week, by the way.
Other than that, we got the nursery pretty much all set and ready to go. That was our Saturday project, and Sunday project was gutters.
And I expect you mowed this week.
No,
or-
we didn't yet. We were supposed to.
Oh, I did that
Yesterday was
too.
too wet. Yesterday was too wet, so we spent most of the day doing stuff inside. Today, we were going to do outside stuff, and then we've been, since Holly's birthday, we've been talking about going to one of the escape rooms. We just didn't have a weekend free until now, so we booked the escape room, but the only time we could book it was kind of like 3:40 in the afternoon, and so it was kind of it was like right in the middle of our day. So I said, all right, we'll just shift everything to tomorrow. We'll do some outdoor stuff tomorrow. And so we went and did a escape room today. We didn't get out of this one in time.
really?
Yeah.
Aw.
Was
Was it the Conundrum?
yeah,
Town?
Conundrum. There are 4, I think, different rooms. We picked one that didn't have, a difficult rating on it, but it was tougher than the one in Omaha. And we got close. We were pleased that we got enough of the. I mean, if we'd have got stymied really early, I think we'd have been upset. But we got a good chunk of it out, but didn't quite make it. We did have to get one hint too. There was just one piece, and I won't go into it because I think you guys should do it. And if you did end up doing this room, I wouldn't want to give it away. But there is one portion of it that we completely got stuck. We knew that there was a key there. We knew there was something to solve there, but we just could not see it. We got a hint and started to work that out, but then I think by that time it was too late. And then, unfortunately, that piece of the puzzle we had kind of got a head on, so we had missed a key element that we probably would have got us through that quicker. But we're 1-1 now, so we'll do
still a good
another one
record.
and see how we do. But they're so expensive, so you kind of got to space them out a bit. But
Yeah.
it was fun though. We all had a blast. That's pretty much it. I didn't watch anything this week, really. I did. Let me back up a little bit because I don't think I talked too much about this, but I've been watching Are You Being Served, and of course I'd finished that last week. I finished watching Are You Being Served Again, which is what it's called here, or Grace and Favor, which is what it's called in the UK. So I finished that, which I think was much more enjoyable, a lot funnier than even Are You Being Served, and I enjoyed that. So then I went back and I watched the movie that I told you guys that I had discovered, and it's not so good. It suffers from, I think, from not having a laugh track because you're so used to seeing it, and I think there's a lot of jokes that are similar enough that they feel like rehash, and it doesn't quite translate well enough the pacing to movie. So it wasn't that great. I mean, it wasn't terrible, but it's only 70-some minutes long.
It's the reverse problem that Naked Gun and Police Squad have.
I think so, yeah.
Because the movie's
Those
funny,
did better as
the show is not.
Yeah. Well, the show's funny. It's just not as good as it's not as well done as the movies, I think. So yeah, it did have the reverse problem.
We went down to Wichita on Saturday. We had a very frustrating Best Buy experience that I won't go into because it'll just serve to make me angry. Going to go pick up our Steelbook copy of Logan and had to go to Wichita to get it because of said Best Buy problem. But it was cool because we got to see a friend of mine, Ryan. Ryan is probably my best friend. I mean, I've known Ryan since like 4th grade. And it's strange because we're just two completely different people. We're, different sides of town, different sides of the tracks, different, ideologies about stuff. We're just two people that you would look at us and go, no. But we went to school together. And kind of something about that, then, my mom collected kids growing up where she always felt sorry for other people. So whenever we'd go somewhere, she'd invite somebody with, or we'd go on a weekend to Kansas City, or we took Ryan to Colorado with us, and just stuff like that. Because she always felt like she could be a positive factor in their lives. And to this day, I mean, we go through, a year or two of not seeing each other, and then we'll see each other for a couple hours and just fall right back into it, like we'll pick up right where we left off. We're just those kinds of friends. So we got to see him and have lunch down in Wichita, which was kind of cool. Picked up our Steelbook. And then just kind of half joking about it, we had talked about, we could go see a movie at the Warren while we're down here.
Especially since it's
changing ownership. Changing ownership to Regal. But I didn't really expect anything to come up, but Mel was like, well, yeah, we could do that. Well, we futzed around so long at lunch that we were in that no man's land of like, well, the show started 20 minutes ago, and now there won't be another one until like 6 something.
Oh, yeah.
So we just went and Pokemon hunted. Went down to Old Town, wandered around, and the Pokemon hunting wasn't very good at Old Town. It was much better at the River Market last time we were down there. And then saw Pirates of the Caribbean Dead Men Tell No Tales.
How was that?
Was disappointing. It's okay. I don't want to say disappointing. I don't want to make it out like I didn't like it. It's enjoyable for what it is. And it's the 5th film in a franchise. So if you kind of factor in diminishing returns, that each sequel's not quite as good as the first one, you have a pretty good benchmark for where you're at with this one. There are a couple of really cool action set pieces. It doesn't have the same visual flair that the other ones do, so they kind of fall a little flat. The biggest problem I have with it is the plot and Johnny Depp. I mean, I love Captain Jack. I really enjoy this character just because he's so fun and nutty and everything. And it's, 20 minutes before he shows up in the movie. And he's very passive. Whereas in the other ones, he's actively out there taking part in the adventure. This one, the adventure's kind of happening and he's just along for the ride. And so it has a kind of a weird tone. They tried really hard to tie it in with the second film. And so it does wrap up a few little items that you may consider a loose end as far as the series goes. But overall, at the end of it, I was kind of going, we didn't really need this movie. So it's okay, but wait for DVD. Don't
I still haven't seen the 4th one, so,
The 4th one's not as good as the trilogy, but I still like it. I know a lot of people don't like the 4th one.
I wasn't overly impressed with 2 or 3 either. I liked 1, and that was about it.
Then you probably wouldn't like 4 either. But yeah, we didn't get home till uber late.
We got a couple movies in. We watched Passengers, which we both thoroughly enjoyed. Although I'm not sure how I feel about how the story was structured. Because narratively, that's not how I would have told this story. But it's different from what you expect narratively. I don't know how to say it without spoiling it.
Yeah, it's a tough one to...
It's just...
Because once you know that, then...
It narrates like a book, I think. More so than a movie would. Because I think a movie would follow a certain character whereas a book would just kind of tell things narratively throughout.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it.
And it kind of made me wish that this was based on a book, because I think the book would probably be even better, but it wasn't. So, but yeah, it was thoroughly enjoyable. Definitely worth watching. I don't know why it didn't get better ratings or reviews or anything like that. And Chris Pratt and Jennifer Lawrence did a really good job.
And it was pretty.
Yeah, it was very well directed.
Sarah liked it?
Yeah, she did. She liked that it was kind of a love story. And then we watched, tonight we watched Hidden Figures, which was pretty good too. I didn't love it, but it was a solid historical drama.
Solid historical.
You know.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
It's what these women accomplished was incredible, especially in the time frame that they did it. And that's the story to take away from it. The amazing things that these three women did. That's all I have really to say about that one.
I like that one too.
It was good. It just wasn't, wow, that was amazing. It was just good.
And you still haven't seen either one of those, right? Yeah.
Nope.
Did you watch Crank 2 yet?
No, I have not.
Well, let's move on to news.
Let's do.
So Titan Comics has announced their plans for Doctor Who Comics Day. All new event kicks off with The Lost Dimension, starting August 30th.
Do we have any details on the Lost Dimension?
Some.
Okay, lay them on me, because I haven't heard this piece of news.
So,
It's news to me.
Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor is battling the universe's darkest forest in the latest season of Doctor Who, currently airing. But the menace continues for the Doctor with a multi-Doctor storyline, The Lost Dimension, from Titan Comics. This alpha issue kicks off Titan's Doctor Who Comics Day global event and continues in the 9th Doctor special that same week. So you get an alpha issue and then a 9th Doctor issue. And then it continues beyond that. The Lost Dimension is an epic event comprised of 8 chapters over 3 months, crossing over all 4 ongoing series, so 9, 10, 11, and 12. The event will begin a new era for Titan's Doctor Who comics, and will find the 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th Doctors playing their part to battle the Void, is what it's called. The Void has always existed. No place, the silent realm, the lost dimension, but the Void is no longer empty. The Void is hungry and devouring our universe. Through time and space, now the 4 Doctors must join forces to save everything. And it is being written by George Mann and Kevin Scott.
George Mann is promising. I don't know who the other guy is.
Kevin Scott has been writing the 9th Doctor ongoing.
Oh, okay. We haven't got to those yet.
And has art from Rachel Stott from the 12th Doctor and Rod Fernandez. I don't know who Rod Fernandez is, but there was also going to be special covers, including an embossed foil TARDIS cover.
Ooh.
So for you cover collectors, there's something special.
And just at I can't say at a glance, but just at a listen, it sounds like this is, when they say multi-Doctor event, it's probably not a true multi-Doctor event.
If there's going to be 8 parts, I think there's a good chance it's going to actually be a multi-Doctor event.
But, let me rephrase. It's not that it's not a multi-Doctor, but the fact that it's spread over all 4 of the ongoing lines right now. The 9th, the 10th, the 11th,
you don't
and the
think they're
12th.
going to cross?
I don't think it'll actually be a multi-Doctor story. I think the event will span all 4 of the Doctor's lives. I could be wrong. I don't know. But it seems like that's kind of what Titan has done in the past with...
Well, that's what they did with Supremacy of the Cybermen.
Mm-hmm.
But with the 4 Doctors, it was an actual...
Which one?
The very first one.
The very first one, yeah.
Which was the first Doctor Who Comics Day thing, and then this is like the 3rd annual one, I believe. So, I guess we'll find out in August.
Yeah, we'll find out.
So we'll just have to get caught up in all the comics, since it's going to be a game changer for Titan Comics, apparently.
Ooh, big words.
Yes. Our other little bit of news is Gallifrey 1 announced their first round of guests. The guests include Sylvester McCoy, Sophie Aldred, Camille Codry, Noel Clarke, Fraser Hines, Terry Malloy, Lisa Bowerman, Sarah Dollard, who just wrote Thin Ice, Jamie Matheson, Peter Harness, Rachel Talalay, Lawrence Goff, and a whole bunch of other writers and behind-the-scenes people that you should go to their website to check out. But those are the big names so far.
Excellent news for those of you that have tickets. Not bitter at all. Especially not bitter that Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout is opened at Disneyland, and I don't have an alternate excuse to go to LA in February and take advantage of that because I don't have tickets to Cali.
Did you hear how long that line was on opening day?
Like 5 hours.
Yeah. I thought I saw 7 at one point.
7?
Clear across the park.
I loved all the people commenting on the press release stuff that they were, messaging James Gunn, like, yeah, we wrote it like 8 times and they kicked us out. And Gunn said, yeah, I wrote it when it was still incomplete, and I wrote it like 6 times. I couldn't get enough of it. I was like, oh, I want to go.
Well, that's it for news. Let's move on to feedback. Shaun, you have Odd Duck Phils?
I have Odd Duck Phils. Odd Duck Phil writes, subject, I'm probably wrong, but... Hey, Hoopekins. Not really a feedback as it's Wednesday, and I haven't seen this week's episode yet. But something popped into my brain. I wanted to share it, hopefully to get your take. It's a crazy theory I'm sure is way off, but, well, just hear me out. Okay, so I suppose potential spoiler warning in case he's right. Moffat introduced us to Wibbly Wobbly Timey Wimey. He also gave us the River Song story arc that showed 2 time travelers interacting nearly back to front, with first meeting for one being the last goodbye for the other. Messing around with the conventions of time seems to be in his wheelhouse. So if this is his last hurrah, why not give it another go? When John Sims' master bowed out, it seemed like the relationship between him and the Doctor was definitely on the mend. So why is it then that Missy shows up and it's back to business as usual? It struck me as odd that they never really deal with that change. I get maybe we shouldn't talk about how the Master returned. It's Doctor Who, you just go with it, or I'll explain later. And then Glenn says, it's not Missy in the box, it's John Sims' Master in the box. What if the Master's regenerations aren't in the order in which they've been presented to us?
Ooh.
The Master time travels nearly as much as the Doctor, so who's to say that Sims' Master precedes Missy? Maybe the order is Gomez, Jacoby, Sim. I don't remember Missy ever talking about what happened between Tennant's Doctor and Sims' Master, or anything to suggest that she has knowledge of those encounters. Yeah, I'm wrong. I rarely spot the turn prior to the reveal, but when that popped into my head, I did get a bit of a chill down my spine. Hopefully I'll be able to knock out a feedback for the pyramid at the corner of 5th and Main, right across from Denny's. No, the good Denny's. Yeah, if you hit the gas station, you've gone too far. Prior to the podcast. Odd Duck Phil. That's the episode title, by the way. You want to weigh in on his theory, Glenn?
Well, I suppose I could, because this week didn't even touch on it.
Yeah.
I like it. Sound theory. There's another theory out there postulated by another podcast that I'll put out there. Potential spoiler warning here if this ends up being the case. That Missy, that John Sim is in the box because Missy wants to kill him so that he'll regenerate into her.
Oh.
And she wants to go back to being bad. John Sim redeemed himself basically at the end of time by sending the Time Lords back to Gallifrey and saving the Earth and the Doctor in the process. And so she knows that he has to die, and the theory is that the Doctor is protecting John Sims' master so that Missy can't kill him and regenerate, which I thought was an interesting theory as well. I think the difficulty you have with that is we have no idea, and so they're all great theories. And I think I wouldn't put it past Moffat to do something like that because he's done it in the past.
Oh, yeah.
But that seems a little more complicated than where Moffat wants to go with this. And so I don't know that I subscribe to Phil's theory, but I like it. I think it's a good theory. The other thing that I wanted to bring up is all of our readers or all of our listeners and you guys were talking about, now it's obvious that Missy's in the box. And last week I kept thinking, why does people think Missy is definitely in that box? The only thing I could think was because they saw the box in the water and they saw the Doctor pick up Missy. It's heavily implied, but we don't know that Missy's in that box. And so then I thought, well, I didn't watch the next week on Doctor Who. maybe she showed up in that and she's in the box. And so I watched the next week on Doctor Who before I got to this episode, and it didn't have it in there as well. And I thought, I think people are falling for the gimmick that Moffat has laid, the breadcrumbs, to make everybody think it's Missy, and that's why I still think it's going to be John Sims Master in the box and not Missy. So we never see Missy go into the box.
No, we don't.
Although he does talk to the vault at the end of last week's episode, and he says Missy, but
I didn't think he said Missy.
yeah. But again, that could be the part of the misdirection because he may not be directly.
And that's probably
addressing
where
the
everybody's
box.
getting that Missy's in the box, because he does say that. But
I still go back to Pop Goes the
until,
Weasel.
until we see who comes out of that box. I'm still not convinced it's Missy. I still think it's probably John Sims Master.
You know, that other theory you floated, that's a really kind of an interesting idea from the standpoint that it suddenly gives the Master a Valeyard kind of story, but not because, oh, what a shocking idea that one of his regenerations is bad. He's just impatient. Hurry up and die.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of a cool idea.
And it is kind of the flip of the Valeyard, because one of his regenerations is now good.
You know, that's the one part. I don't know if I could use the word redeemed himself. Because let's be honest, the Master prevented the Nestine consciousness from taking over Earth and Terror the Autons. Because he had to. I mean, not exactly. It was his plan. He just had to stop it from going to fruition.
But
again and again and again and again.
But in the end of time, I mean, the Master had as much to gain as Rassilon and the other Gallifreyans that were ready to extend to that next level.
I suppose
in fact, they offered him the opportunity. He basically said, they basically said, we can do this with you. And so, I mean,
that's true. That's a stronger motivation.
They used him as a tool. And so I think ultimately, had they not used him as a tool, he probably wouldn't have done what he did. But because he also was looking for vengeance against them for what they had done for so many years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Was it a selfless act to save the Earth, or was it no?
Screw you. Yeah.
I think it was that more than selfless.
Either way, though, he did choose the Doctor over the Time Lords. So choose to save the Doctor over the Time Lords. So
I suppose.
See, but the fact that he chose the Doctor feeds into, especially when Missy first showed up, talking about how the Doctor is her boyfriend, and
I think
how they're besties and whatnot.
It's often fun to speculate where Moffat's going, but we really won't know until Moffat goes there. So I just keep keying back into the interview in Doctor Who magazine, or what he wrote in Doctor Who magazine about, you will be genuinely surprised to see what's in the box. And I don't think he would say that if he's going to leave enough breadcrumbs for us to think it was Missy in that box.
What's in the box?
So, but hopefully we'll see next week in the third part of this.
I don't know if we will.
Did you not believe me? No,
I totally believe you.
I should say, behind the scenes here, I kept putting 3 up. In fact, before in the show notes, I said the 3 parts. And then you guys, when you were talking about it, said that, in the next part, or somebody even referred to it as the finale of this, and I kept putting my fingers up with 3. I sensed that it was going to go 3 parts. Not to mention, these particular 3 episodes are written by, they're co-written, but they all specifically have Stephen Moffat's name on them. So I knew it had to be 3 parts. It was, the writing was in the sand. In the sand. In the Tunisian sand.
Well, Phil did get some more feedback in.
He continues. Subject, yay, or woo. I did that wrong. A Ric Flair sound clip. That's totally not a Ric Flair sound. I'll just edit that out and put in a Ric Flair
sound clip in there.
Yay, or woo. See, that's a much better reaction. I'll use that one. Hey, who peekins? As the subject alludes to, I really liked the pyramid at the end of the world. I loved the monks' invasion plan, and I'm actually surprised no one's tried it before. Or have they, and I'm just not remembering. Stupid memory worms. I love that in the end, the Doctor's refusal to tell others of his blindness thwarted a plan that nearly foiled the monks. I loved Erica, and I'm always glad when the show winks at the audience and the Doctor points out what we're all thinking at home. That person would be a great companion. See, he's auditioning all the time.
Always.
And I absolutely loved how the end of the world almost came to be. No alien attack, no global thermonuclear war. No madman pursuing domination or destruction. No, the end was nearly brought about by a couple of mistakes and oversights. And that somehow seems the most likely way for this world to end, I think. And while I was shocked when the doctor recommended attacking the pyramid, I took some solace in that I wasn't alone. Nardole and Bill's, "Wait, what?" responses echoed my own. Although in hindsight, I can excuse this a bit. I wonder if the doctor chose this course of action as a test to see how thorough the monks' simulation was. Was it so out of character that maybe the monks could not have expected it? Oh well, I'm now thoroughly psyched for the conclusion of this little trilogy, and I hope that the rest of the season keeps this pacing and feel. Looking forward to your thoughts and the thoughts of other listeners. Odd Duck Phil.
Thanks, Odd Duck Phil.
Always a pleasure.
Yes.
And we will reply with our thoughts momentarily.
But first, Holly. Holly writes, "The Pyramid at the End of the World. Hey guys. Well, if Extremis last week was the start of a 3-part story, Pyramid fits the middle act of a 3-parter. Wished it would have been Unit crashing Bill and Penny's nightcap instead of the UN. The Doctor being president of the whole world. Wow, talk about a big job. Like the Doctor walking around his TARDIS and playing the guitar again. The monks kind of remind me a bit of the sisters of the spinning wheel of fates, deciding who or what event to cut and when. Bill finally knows that the Doctor can't see, and the look on the Doctor's face when he realizes what Bill has done when he gets his sight back. Can't wait to see how this all shakes out and figures into the rest of the season with the Vault and Missy. Looking forward to your review of this episode. Holly from Wisconsin."
Thank you, Holly.
Thank you,
Thanks, Holly. And of course, you can send us feedback by going to our website, travelingthevortex.com, and fill out the Send Us Feedback tab, or send it directly to feedback@travelingthevortex.com. And of course, you can also reach out to us through any form of social media.
And now, our thoughts.
The Pyramid at the End of the World. An ancient pyramid appears overnight. Every clock in the world begins counting down to the Earth's destruction. 3 opposing armies lie ready to annihilate each other. An alien race stands ready to offer humanity a deal that could save them, but enslave them. It is a terrifying race against time to save the world. Will the Doctor be forced to accept their help?
Bum, bum, ba! I think.
It's kind of one of those, being a middle part. I feel like I have to fully reserve judgment until I see the final act.
I had much more fun with the ride part of this one than last week.
Yeah.
Which I really liked. And I thought to myself, oh, this kind of sort of fixes a little bit of last week with, when they get into the pyramid and the monks are there in front of the string bit, which first of all was just a really cool effect. That was brilliantly realized. It really, I think, helped sell the whole Matrix style scenario of they're running all these simulations and this is how this. I needed that visual to kind of make this part work for me. So in that respect, it fixed it. But the opening part where Bill is describing to her date all of the stuff that happened in the Dreamland. Okay, how does she know all that? Because the only way she could have got that information is if she had told the Doctor all of that and then he relayed it back to Bill, which I have a problem with because A, that seems like a lot of unnecessary exposition that the Doctor simply wouldn't have cared about.
Let me interject.
Go for it.
Because I had to rationalize this for myself, but more importantly for my family, who was very confused by that. I think ultimately what we have to do, and this is more headcanon and presupposition, but I think you have to think of it as when the Doctor sent the final file to the Doctor, when simulated Doctor sent the file, he must have sent enough information to at least do what we saw in the episode to play out, so that the Doctor then relayed that information to Bill, who then in turn is relaying that information to Penny.
I got the impression, just by the way they presented the simulation to us, that it wasn't the Doctor's perspective through the simulation that he was seeing.
And it wasn't Bill's.
Literally, it was the recording of the simulation. Yeah. So what we saw was what the Doctor saw.
Exactly. And that's what he sent to the Doctor, because at the point that the Doctor in the simulation realizes that he's nothing but a program, that he's ones and zeros, at that point he can send whatever data he needs to send to the Doctor. So I don't think he sent the details that were within the book. I don't even think he sent the details that were recorded from the book that he got the information from. I think what he did is he sent the information of at least what we saw to the doctor, who at some time between episodes relayed that information back to Bill and explained to Bill what had happened to her. And because he tells her to call Penny in the last episode, and she doesn't know who Penny even is, so that wouldn't be information coming from her recognizing what happened in the thing. He called Penny, and I have a feeling he explained more as to why she should call Penny, and then explained to her what happened to her in the simulation.
Yeah.
And then the doctor comes to the big stringy thing in this one and says, "Oh, the simulation looks much different from the outside." So we get the impression that he at least got a visualization or some data that referred him to what it looked like from the inside. And he knew what Bill and Nardole had gone through there because he saw the simulation from that point of view, from that perspective, or at least was aware of it from their perspective when they walked into the room with the projectors.
Yeah.
So I think, in my summation, the simulated doctor relayed everything he needed to know to the doctor, who then in turn told Bill, and that's why Bill was able to relate the story to Penny.
I would concur.
It seems like more information than the doctor would have given Bill, but okay. I mean, just the fine details of how her date went. He wouldn't care.
But I think maybe he wondered how much of it would be important because if it was a simulation of things that could or were going to happen, he may have needed her to know, so when she was in that situation, she would know what to look out for.
Yeah.
In fact, so much so that when the Pope showed up was pretty much the point where the UN, the president of the UN showed up. So it was like, okay, that was a funny little thing. My kids immediately went, "Oh no, it's got to be another simulation because now this guy has shown up." And I said, "No," and that was where we had to stop it. And I had to explain that I think they just had that foreknowledge from the information that simulation doctors sent to the doctor.
Yeah.
Got it. So yeah, still on the fence with last week's episode now because of that, but it fixed it a little bit. That's not to say that this week wasn't without problems. I had a few, and many. Probably more many than a few, but the ride was so enjoyable that, again, as you pointed out, Keith, I kind of feel like I just need to wait for the next part before I can...
Unfortunately, looking at the next time trailer, I don't know if any of the problems you might have will be resolved next week.
Probably not.
Because it seems like it's on to a whole new story arc. Like, not a new story arc, but it's a new setting. It's a new story in what they're doing next week as opposed to a continuation from this week.
Well, but this one
it connects still.
This one connected in such a way that this was a whole different... This was kind of a different scenario and story, though, too. And only connected from the fact that we find out who the monks are. Yeah. So,
and that's, I think, going to be the only thread continuing into the next week.
That's what I kind of wondered, too, is if this was a halfway point set up for the rest of the series. That Bill's going to have to make retribution for what she did.
Possibly.
Yeah, I wonder how far they're going to carry that out. Obviously, the doctor gets his eyesight back. I don't know. I kind of got... I watched the next time.
Loses it again, right?
I watched the next time.
No, I'm thinking of Extremis.
Yeah. I watched it again on... I watched the next time on Doctor Who, and I looked at it and kind of felt like it tied in more than you're saying that it does. It really looks like next week is ramifications of her decision.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think that I think we'll get a semi resolution.
Yes,
based on
I would concur. I'm just the virus and the pyramid. I think that's all behind us now, is what I mean. I think we're moving on with something different, and it will have we're dealing with the ramifications, like you said, and it's the monks and what they're doing now that they are in control.
I liked it from the standpoint of exactly what you're saying about. I really enjoyed the ride. I thought it had a lot of clever visual things, but this and Extremis both have felt like eye candy with no substance. But there's a lot of visual effects. There's a lot of fun. There's a lot of... I keep feeling like we're going to get something out of the episode, and then it's almost like it leaves me just a little empty by the time they get to the end. And I have a feeling that's because it's part 1, part 2, and we still haven't got the resolution of the entire thing. So there's some void of satisfaction for me so far because we haven't gotten a resolution to what's going on here.
It's cotton candy. It's light and fluffy and very pretty, but I don't feel so good by the time I'm done eating all of it.
Well, not even so much that, but you couldn't have that for dinner. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
light and fluffy and fun, but you can't have that for dinner. You've got to have something satisfying. And I think we'll get maybe the main course next week. But I really liked the gal from the lab. And I kind of like, I'm with Phil. I thought that was a clever situation to make it, you know,
Yeah.
the first thing you go to is into the world scenario is all the things that he listed in his feedback. And it was none of those. It was a simple mistake. And it was a simple mistake based on, it's interesting that Holly brought up the Sisters of Fate because it's almost that idea of fate is what put them in that situation because he went out drinking the night before.
Mhm.
She got her glasses broke in the door when she put her bag in there to hold the door open when she was going to unload her car. And so it's that simple of a fact that he, you know, couldn't stay awake because he had been drinking the night before and she didn't have her reading glasses, so she relied on him to do it. I thought that was an interesting take and very unexpected.
She was relying on him to input that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he
That
didn't
fixes
do
one
it
of the
right
problems I
because
had
he
with
was still suffering from his hangover.
Well, when the glasses got broke, I was like, oh, okay, this is, you know, I see where you're going. All right, cool. But then nothing ever.
She says, "Can you input that because I broke my reading glasses?"
I just didn't.
or my reading glasses got broken.
That never really entered into that was the problem.
Yeah.
I knew he screwed up because I saw the decimal
She
point.
normally would have done it.
Okay.
But he ends up doing it for
Yeah,
her.
no, I just kept waiting for the glasses to play a factor, and they didn't.
Yeah.
And so then I was angry because I was like, what was this, a MacGuffin? What were you setting me up with this for? But now that makes a lot more
She clearly
sense.
says it too. Can you mix it?
Yeah,
Because
I just didn't realize
my
that
glasses
was the
broke. Yeah.
that was the linchpin. I was
That is
expecting
the
a bigger,
So that
you
was
know,
neat.
she's
And
trapped in the lab doing
I liked-
something, and then
I like the doctor auditioning her, or spotting that she would be a
Yeah.
excellent companion, which also again, like the comics did for me, had me going, well, let's have hers be the companion next. Then if Bill's gonna leave, then let's have her be the companion.
My only problem with the whole lab plot line, which I agree, I thought it was a really clever thing, the fact that that's the end of the world and not these 3 superpowers poised on a trigger.
Mhm.
But the fact that I know that they kind of fixed it later with, well, the entire air system's gonna filter it out and that's gonna cause the problem. But the fact that the guy didn't close the door, the airlock doors behind him, that it was leaking out. Even if he wasn't hungover, even if he was hungover, that's still enough. He should have been able to do that.
I have a bigger problem with the idea that you work in an environment that requires a clean room, requires you to wear these suits, and requires you to put a helmet on to go into that room, and you took your helmet off. I don't care if you're going to feel sick.
After everything died.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, no, I guess he
that
waited
was
a month.
reversed.
I don't care. If you're in that room, that hat stays on. If you feel like you're going to be sick, you leave the room. I just
And at
as
the very
soon as he
least,
did it, I was like,
as soon as they died, you put the thing back on.
yeah.
Even if it might be too late, that's something to try to protect
But then
yourself.
he opens up the thing, and he's in there scooping
with
it in
his
the
hood off.
Maybe
Okay.
I could buy it if the glass door had still been closed.
Yeah,
But the minute he opened it up with the hood off, I was like,
dude's dead.
You're
the thing
dead.
Is that's
You're
just
so
it.
dead.
You've got to have the device that delivers the plot, and that's the device
yeah.
that delivers the plot. I'm actually more forgiving of that. I think the guy's an idiot, but he's an idiot, and that's why it gets out. That's the device. It doesn't matter. It
That's
doesn't
part of
matter
the
how
brilliance.
stupid I think the guy is. It needed that vehicle to get it out. The other thing that
But see, that's the problem I have with it. I mean, I understand you're right. I understand you need to move the bus from A to B to C,
the thing
and that's what
is-
they used. But if I have this problem with everything,
That's
not
the
just with
thing,
Doctor
is-
Who. It's a
is-
trope,
this
and it's
isn't
lazy
just
writing.
This isn't just his thing. It happens all the time. It's a familiar trope. It's something that happens, and you're right. It is an easy way.
It
to
just
deliver
sets
the
my
plot,
hackles
but-
off because it's like, you're a scientist. You got to be a scientist by being smart. You can't be dumb and be a scientist. That's not how it works. You have to study, you have to learn things, and then you go into this job and you do this. Okay, so he showed up for work hungover. All right, I can, he's human as well as smart, but he's human. But then to pull that thing is like, no, you've ruined any credibility this guy had other than as a plot device now.
Well,
So it
that's
just kind of
it.
sucked
He's
me
the
right
plot
out of
device.
that.
But I think the other thing that I have with that is I also have to put myself in that scenario. Would I have done that? No. But this is a scenario that they've drilled on it before. Who knows? But he's not thinking once they realize that this toxin's in the air.
Yeah.
He's not thinking. He's not thinking clearly. Coupled on the fact that he is hungover and he's clearly having effects, and he's tired because she tells him to knock off under the thing for a while because she recognizes he's tired enough. You do some stupid things when you're tired. It's not your own fault most of the time. Well, it was his fault because he got drunk in the first place. But so I guess I'm a little forgiving about that. The other thing that I found was interesting is my family had a problem with the fact that they thought the doctor was going to have to blow up the entire facility. And
That's what his
I
plan
thought
was.
that was the plan.
he said, well, I kind of got the impression too originally, but he said that, once he burns it off, it was producing, she said it's producing methane gas. So he comes up with the idea, we just burn it off. Holly and Caitlin both are saying, well, as soon as you blow this building up, you're going to let off any excess that there is. And I said, well, not necessarily, because if it's producing if it's producing methane, then it's going to completely incinerate the virus before it can get anywhere.
Yeah.
But
that's the
that being
idea.
said, they fixed it even more by he was just exploding that inner lab, and in turn the outer lab, because they had 3 levels. And I think that was another thing that they missed is they said, well, they would have taken it out to the outer lab, or they would have taken it out outside the lab. And I had to point out that there are 3 areas. There's the area with the plants, there's the area they were working, and then she ended up outside even that. And that's what he blew up. So I hope everybody understood that he just had to burn out the contaminant within those 2
Right.
areas. So
Who knows what kind of damage it would have
Right.
done, but
No, I was totally with
it
you
definitely
thinking
did
that,
a lot of damage within those 2 labs, but
I was totally thinking that the whole building was going up until that visual, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, that may,
he at least was going to contain it in there.
And oddly enough, his response of "I'm going to blow it up" much more appropriate this week than in Smile.
yeah.
Totally okay
sort
with
of went
blowing
on
this
that
one
too.
up.
yeah.
But again, what I thought was the most important thing to come away from this one was the doctor, as Phil even pointed out that the doctor putting off telling Bill
Yeah.
so long that it ended up being his demise. And that being the thing that stymied him when he was trying to get out. He couldn't see the numbers, so he couldn't see the numbers to get out.
And what a brilliant way of playing around the visual that he gets from the sonic glasses, which I originally had a problem with that, and I didn't bring it up, but I've retconned that myself because of all of the suggestions that we've kind of gotten along the years that the sonic is telepathic to some extent. I don't believe that the sonic glasses are actually transmitting this data, and this is what he can quote-unquote see. I think it's just tapped directly into his brain,
Yeah.
and it's presenting that kind of visual. And it worked so well when they gave us the visual earlier that he could see the pad, but not what was on the pad.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when he got locked in there, and Mel's like, "Bill, you're on a smartphone. Just take a
That's
picture
what Sarah
of it."
kept saying.
Everything.
Does he not have a cell phone?
And it's like, no, because you can't see it. And it was like, okay,
Caitlin
yeah.
said,
Yeah, but
well, she
Skype
could just
and
FaceTime with him.
Yeah. So she could see
could
and
see
tell
what he
him
was
Oh,
what
I
to
hadn't
do.
thought about that. No, I don't think he does have a phone.
I don't
though.
think he does either. Because they were talking through like
He has a phone, he just didn't have him at that time.
Yeah, I
Well,
guess,
They had some sort of communication device, but it
He
wasn't.
was talking through the glasses.
Wow. His communication device happens to be in the glasses. Nardles is in his button.
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I
But maybe the glasses
completely see
could
why that
have
wouldn't
tapped
work,
into that
no.
signal. I don't know. There's probably
Yeah.
a way to fix that. But I still thought it was
It didn't
cool.
No, I was
drama.
forgivable of the fact that
Yeah.
I couldn't do it because I envision the glasses the same way as that they're sending. It's sending information to his mind that is translating into the images that he sees because they are somewhat psychic,
Right.
or at least a way to tap into his synapses and deliver the information that he needs. So
I was very, very pleased with the 3 military minds just agreeing not to fight each other.
Yeah.
That was such a cool moment that then was shattered 5 minutes later when they were like, yep, we're going to go surrender. It's like,
well, yeah, I
you
agree.
reverted to type again. We're
But-
just going to go do something. And it's like, doesn't the president of Earth outrank everybody in that room? Shouldn't he have given here's an executive order,
I think
don't go?
Here's the problem that I find with that, and this probably is retconning it as well or fixing it as well, but they all realize, because the doctor keeps driving the point home that he's not human. He's not from Earth. Even if he's got this title of president of Earth,
It's not his planet.
It's not his planet. And so ultimately, I think what they do is they default to, this is our decision because it is our planet. It's not his.
And at
Despite
one
what
point,
he says.
he even says it's up to you guys, but
Yeah.
don't do it.
Yeah, exactly.
When he
And-
should have probably just said, just don't do it.
And I think it
Yeah,
even
it's an
worked
order.
really well because when the president of the UN, or the UN director, says, "Well, yeah, you have my consent," and he realizes it's out. He does the little touchy thing, and he goes, "No, it was out of fear." So when they do it, I kind of thought, "Oh, okay, well." Even because they did the friendship thing over, yeah, we won't go to war. Then when they do it and they say you did it out of strategy, I didn't see that coming.
I didn't
I was
either.
like,
No.
that was some clever writing there. They did it out of strategy, and that's what they did. They're military minds. They did it out of strategy. It was a strategy to save themselves and save the planet. And so it really works that the Doctor is put in the situation he's put in, and Bill does it for him, not
Yeah.
because of love of the gods that they want to be, but for love of the Doctor. And so that really worked for me. So I thought that was a big
And
clever writing.
friendship, I didn't. There's no romantic love,
no,
obviously,
no,
on Bill's
yeah,
part.
yeah.
So just to drive that home for
Love-
anybody that's
love-
out there
no,
that's
no,
complaining,
love
oh, it's a
trans-
love thing.
Love transcends very different relationships.
It is a friendship love.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the main thing about the story. It's setting up all the dominoes so they fall into a certain place for the resolution next week.
Yeah.
And because the blindness and all the stuff at the lab has to be this way in order for Bill to give consent and save the Doctor, and therefore set up the conflict for next week.
That's an excellent analogy because how many times do you watch one of these videos with dominoes and you sit there and you're very impressed by the
Yeah.
visualization, but you're not satisfied until they get all the way to the end of the domino stream. And when that last one falls, you feel satisfied because it made it all the way through. That's kind of the analogy that you
Yeah.
put.
It doesn't matter how
exactly
cool or
like that.
pretty it is in the meantime. You watch all the way till
Yeah,
the last one goes
because
over.
You're not satisfied until all of those dominoes have fallen.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening here. You could say that with any episode too, but in this case,
But
it's
the problem
obvious because we're doing 3.
It's not the
episodes.
resolve.
Exactly.
It's not over yet.
And most of the episodes, actually all of the episodes this season, with the exception of these 2, had a resolution at the
Yeah.
end. So
Yeah.
Mostly.
Well,
Other than the overall
Yeah.
plot,
right.
No, I'm right there with you. Like I said, I enjoyed the ride so much. It was a fun, fast-paced, and big things happening. But it was just like not quite the little things that just didn't add up. But I can forgive all of that if the resolution when that last domino falls, it's like, oh, okay, you can make this all okay. I'm not even asking you to explain away certain things. Just make the ride overall worthwhile, and that will help smooth that transition. Because I was thinking about this and how I would not necessarily compare, but with last week's episode and this week's episode, being the setup for this week and the different nature of it. And what I was really struck by was Sleep No More, which, I think we liked the idea of it. We just didn't like how it was executed. But with that particular story, it's really the only way you could execute it. There just wasn't really another way to tell that. And I think last week's episode kind of falls into that. I think the minute they set it up as it's a simulation, it's a program, you have to tell it from within the program. That's where the emotional boom is. And if you tell it any other way, then it really becomes, well, who cares?
Well, and unlike last week, Sleep No More, I think, was written with the idea of let's do a found footage. Okay, how do we do a found footage with this idea? Whereas opposed to...
Yeah, no, I agree.
It's the reverse.
This one's story first, but this is how you tell the story. Sleep No More was gimmick first, and
Yes.
yeah. No, I agree with you there. That's definitely the feel of it. But that was the first thing that I could really latch on to that went, okay, because I mulled over it all week long going, is there a way to fix last week's episode, not having seen this week's? And that was the only correlation I came up with, is I liked the idea, but I didn't like how you went about telling me the idea, but I don't think you can tell me that idea any other way than the way that you did. Having seen this week's episode now, I'm kind of still in that camp, because there's just no way to tell that particular story. So now I'm hoping that the resolution really helps justify. And like I said, they went a long way with the strings. That just, for some reason, that visual really went, oh, okay, that's why this was important. I don't know why. I really don't understand why I needed that picture to marry. It's not like I didn't get it. I just, all of a sudden, it made much more sense to me.
Certainly helped. I think one of the things that Peter Moffat does that a lot
Stephen
of
Moffat?
Stephen Moffat does that a lot of writers don't do. A lot of writers will write a story, and each individual story has a beginning and an end, and then afterwards there's that gotcha, we're going to carry this over. Stephen Moffat seems to, when he writes these multi-part stories, seems to write them as one long story. And so while you still get a cliffhanger, you don't get a beginning, end, and then a gotcha, and then a beginning, and end, and a gotcha, and then a beginning, and a gotcha. You get a beginning, a gotcha, and then an end. You know, so I think we're used to that style of television, especially story writing, where you have a episode that somewhat resolves itself by the end, and then gives you a cliffhanger. Whereas Moffat is writing this as one large episode, even though it starts to feel like a beginning and end resolution, because even last week's kind of had that, but it feels a little more open-ended. And so the gotcha almost feels like end of Act 1, Act 2, end of Act 2, Act 3. And so I think he's got just a little different style of writing. And he's even with his all of the two-parters he's written. Now, when you look at Blink, or you look at I can't think of another one that he's written that wasn't a two-parter now. But Blink, was kind of
during the RTV era.
Yeah, I can't even think of any this since he's been showrunner that weren't.
I mean, all of the ones from showrunner has been mythology
Christmas
based.
specials, but
yeah, I guess so. He has able to do that with Christmas specials.
Even then, some of those have been tying in the
some of
mythology
those
of the season.
Certainly too. But I guess my point is even when he wrote two-parters in the Russell T. Davies era, those were very much, we're not even going to give you an ending here. We're just going to hang on this, and then we'll pick it back up next week. And I think he's done that now with this. And he's done a little more to feel like individual episodes, but he's still writing in that style. So I think that's why they feel like they're to me, feel like they're empty up until we finally get a resolution.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah.
Possible exception would be Good Man Goes to War and Let's Kill Hitler. But that might be colored just because there was a break in between the seasons waiting for it to come back. But I kind of feel like Let's Kill Hitler is more of a separate story that, yes, finishes off some of the leftover dangling threads, but it's not
because
really structured as a two-parter.
Good Man Goes to War was certainly written as in the same style as a series finale.
Yeah. But maybe
with
not.
a cliffhanger ending. So, but yeah, you might be right. I mean, that's certainly why those two feel more like that.
I also like as Phil mentioned, the fact that the monks aren't just an invading army. They show up and they're waiting to be asked to save the world, and then that's how they take over. I think that's a really clever idea.
It's really kind of parallels the Egyptian gods in the sense that they come and they just want to be worshipped with love. And I mean, all the way down to them being in a pyramid. I mean, and then taking the form of corpses, because that's what they envision people as. The Egyptians' gods did the same thing. They took on appearances that the ancient Egyptians would recognize. So we didn't know. Supposedly, you don't know what the Egyptian gods really looked like because they put forth an image. These guys are doing the same thing. So there's a lot of parallels to Egyptian mythology here, right down to the fact that there's a pyramid.
They were human up to the neck, and then they were green squiggles with a big eye right in the middle.
Just that one. The other ones had heads of dogs, hawks. The ones that got the masks right.
Anything else?
I think so.
I don't think
Any
so.
other thoughts?
It's going to be kind of a wait and see.
I think so too. I think we'll just have to wait until next week to see where we go. All right, Sean, what we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up next week on the schedule is British Fest, which is in Omaha, Nebraska. So if you are in that area, you should definitely come out and meet us. At least Glenn and I will be there. Keith is opting to stay home with the very large. I can say that now because I saw her this week. I didn't realize how big Sarah was getting.
Last weight, the baby was 4 pounds, 12 ounces.
Oh, wow.
If that's accurate. We are now 40 days to go.
40 days to go.
6 weeks.
So they didn't feel comfortable coming with us to the trek to Omaha. I can't say I blame them. But you can come meet Glenn and myself, and Terry Malloy, who was Davros, and Fraser Hines, who was Jamie, and Colin Spall, who has played multiple characters on Doctor Who, and see Tom Baker's life model Decoy. and a Tartarus console, and canine, and bag end, and all kinds of other cool British stuff if you're in the area. We will be watching The Seeds of Death for Friday Night Who next week, parts 1 through 3. Not to be confused with the Tom Baker Seeds of Doom, which I do every single time because those titles are just too close. This is the Patrick Troughton and the Ice Warriors and a lot of soap bubbles. Although you may not get the soap bubbles in the first
Probably
three
not
parts.
in the first three.
I think it's in the second half. But it's the first 3 parts of Seeds of Death with Patrick Troughton because we're celebrating Jamie being at British Fest. And then will be our show on the 3rd part of this maybe trilogy, maybe quadrilogy. We're not really sure where Moffat's going at this point. Do we have is The Lie of the Land? Is that the official?
That's the name of the episode. Yes,
Okay.
The Lie of the Land.
At one point, it was also rumored to be called The Truth, and I think The Lie of the Land is a much better title. Is there a play on words going on there?
Most definitely.
Probably. We'll find out.
And if you are already supporting us as a Patreon supporter, thank you very much. And if not, there is a button where you can support us on a monthly basis. Just go to our website, travelingthevortex.com. Please consider that, and also consider clicking through some of the links on our page. All of that money goes right back into this podcast. We do want to mention the Goodreads contest. We're going one more week here because we said till the end of May, and we are actually recording the day before May ends. So we are going to announce the winner next week. So you have one more day, although as this goes out, you probably will have run out of time. But we will announce our winner on June.
We planned that so well.
Yeah, we will. We will announce our, well, it depends on how fast we get it turned between Shaun and I. But we will announce our winner on the next show, and we do have somebody in the lead right now. So get those in. All right. Anything else we need to cover before we close the show?
I don't think so.
If that's going to do it for this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing you.
For now, Dick Clark. So long.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.